Welcome to Deal Nation. Our guest today has been one of my mentors since the very beginning, someone who I've always gone to when I needed to know or when launch control needed to find out what was happening in the industry, what we needed to prep for. So, really excited to have Jesus Toledo from 80/20 Recruit on the show. How are you, Jesus?
Hey, Michael, thank you. Thank you so much, man. I'm happy to be here. Happy to exchange some ideas on real estate.
Awesome. Yeah, I started in the industry in 2019, and the first thing the founder of the company told me to do was he gave me a list of a few names, your name included, that these people know the business. Go talk to them, right? Like basically like the remote work equivalent of take this guy out for a beer and play nice, right? And then my
Oh,
second step was to call a bunch of investors and talk to a bunch of investors. But you are at the very top of the call sheet when I first started.
I appreciate that. And it has been a great several conversations that we had over the years. So happy to be on that list, man.
Awesome. So for the people listening, we not long ago we had Felipe, your partner Felipe, on, and we talked up 80/20 quite a bit, and your guys' kind of origin story, both coming in from Chile, which is kind of an amazing journey. So let's kind of dip back there a little bit and kind of get your version of that jump over to Miami, South Florida, real estate, all of that.
Yeah. So I didn't come to the US like several immigrants. I had the opportunity to come. I had the green card. I had everything laid out. I had my previous business back in Chile. Was doing okay, but I loved Miami. I love the weather. I really enjoy the weather. The sun gives me a lot of energy, so I wanted to be here. And the opportunities obviously was a good, attractive, right? And this is the best country in the world, in my opinion. So why not? So when we came here, we came separately. Felipe came a little bit before I came, and then I came, and we always stayed in touch. We're friends from high school, and I had my previous business I was working on, and a few years into living in here and looking at the opportunities, I came across real estate. Like I reread Reach Dad Poor Dad and saw it from a different set of eyes. Right, like now I'm in America, I understand
Yeah.
these things now. And I reached out to Felipe. He was running his own business too, and I said, "Man, like I think we should explore this real estate thing." And
And
then
we
we
got to
went.
get into, sorry to interrupt, like
Huh?
I swear this podcast we should do affiliate marketing for Rich Dad Poor Dad for as many times as that book comes up.
But
It would pay
it's
for the
crazy.
podcast.
It's crazy because I already read it before, but it didn't. Maybe it didn't resonate as much at the time, or I didn't absorb it as well. I wasn't mature enough. I don't know. When I read it this time, I said, "Man, like I have to get involved in this real estate thing." Right? We
Yeah.
went to the local RIA event here and opened up the doors. We saw a trend of the group was separated. There was like an older crowd of the home flippers, the more traditional guys, and the newer crowd of the wholesalers. And I realized there was a discrepancy there. Like they literally were sitting in different groups. You would see a
Yeah.
small table, young kids like looking into wholesaling. So I connect with both, and we definitely saw the opportunity, and then we dove in.
Yeah. So it's an interesting transition from that time when you're sitting in a room and there's kind of separate groups all attached to the distressed property market, and homeowners having really no idea that room ever gathered, right? Like that wasn't something that was publicly known, and maybe today still isn't super publicly known, but a bit more so. So how have you seen the industry change in terms of uh, public awareness or general awareness, and also within that relationship between those two groups?
Yeah. Well, I think the real estate investing crowd is becoming younger and younger. Like I've seen it over the years. It's not that I think I've seen it over the years, right? Like even in the masterminds, we share a few masterminds together. You see, like it was uh, an expensive game to play, right? Now
Yeah.
it seems like the barrier of entry has been lower and lower and lower. Now anybody can be a wholesaler, and that's a great opportunity. right? And it opens doors. I've seen some influencers nowadays. They're like, they look like 16, 15 years old, saying they're making $100,000 a year from wholesaling and promoting courses and doing things, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that's great opportunity. Um, I think we're getting into the next evolution of that, where anybody could be a part of it, with the changes in regulations and the attention that is bringing into it, that require you to be a professional, to be a good business owner, to stay in there, right? Because there are going to be changes. Only the good ones, only the people who are prepared are going to be able to adjust to the needs of their specific market if there's any change in regulation, like becoming a realtor, maybe becoming a broker. And you see more and more of that trend. Even the big brokers, a lot of the big brokers, they're becoming a all-in-one solution. They can list your property. Some of them can even rehab it and list it for you. So they lend you the money, they coordinate the rehab, and then they list it, right? Or they will flip it, or they will do a cash offer on your house. So I believe the next stage is consolidating more professionals, people who are prepared to adjust based on market trends, but also on regulation changes that are happening.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's part of a, maturation process of the industry, but that kind of swings it back full circle, right? Now it gets to the point where the barrier of entry is quite a bit higher, right? So it's a real speed bump for there's the hustle culture side of it of you can get involved in real estate with no money. So how do you see people that are those the younger group that you know don't want to go to college, none of the trades are really speaking to them, but real estate does, and
Yeah,
they want to get involved. So how in a more mature market does someone get a foothold?
that's going to be interesting. I mean, there's always room. I think home flipping is never going to go away, right? Uh, you can always. I genuinely believe wholesaling is going to be restricted from the essence of it, right? And that will put a little higher barrier, like you said, to new people trying to get in. Maybe working with a broker, maybe becoming a licensed agent and specializing in the cash offer type of solution, whatever is available for you in your market. So it's definitely maturing. I think it is going to evolve. And but there's when it's more regulation, there's a higher barrier of entry, but there's bigger opportunity because less people are going to be willing to go there. I see that as an opportunity for the people who are really committed to the real estate. They will figure it out how to get involved, regardless of what happens, and provide a solution. I'm a huge fan of you get paid proportionally to the size of the problem that you solve, right?
Hmm.
Real estate problems are always going to be there. People are going to go through death, divorces, debt. If somebody can solve that problem, you're passionate about solving those problems, you're going to have a space. It might be a little harder to be able to do it in a consistent and legal way. Let's air quote that. But yeah, I think there's always going to be an opportunity for the people that are interested going into that.
Yeah, coming from Rich Dad Poor Dad, there what came out of it was a very sort of lone wolf hustler um, mentality, right? Whereas like I can do this, I can make success happen for myself. I can be an entrepreneur, and the maturation process that you're describing, I could see a apprenticeship system coming into play where someone who wants to get involved in the business, because every investor I know who's at that level of scaling up, they need really good acquisitions people. They need people that want to learn the business, and they're willing to open up the whole process to them. To say like, this is we get our data from 80/20 REI. We use launch control to send text messages. Here's the scripting that we use for our seller calls. When we get to the disposition process, we don't want to handle transactions, so we bring in David Olds and have his team do the transaction coordination. And then we do, and they've got this whole like pipeline like laid out for people. And if someone's coming in new, you might not make 20 grand off of a deal in your first 90 days, but you could get regular apprenticeship employment where you're learning, um, hands on how to do this business. And I can see a future where a lot of the investors are saying, yeah, I'll bring you on, but you have to give me a minimum of X number of months, right? And I'll teach you everything, but you can't. I'm not going to hire you if you're going to stay for 60 days and bail. Right? So I feel like there can be a compromise system that comes into play.
Yeah, I second to that. I think it's a great way to learn any new industry. It's work for the best investor in your market, right? Like, what
Yeah,
better school than really going in and doing it and getting paid while doing it, right?
yeah,
And after a while, if you want to start your own shop, make sure you do it uh, the best way possible, right? Don't burn any bridges, and we learn and we can go there. But and there's a lot of money to be made working with a real estate company, right? A lot of people don't want to be a business owner. They want to be involved in real estate. Some companies even offer you the opportunity to buy some of the deals and start building your own rental portfolio as you work in the real estate company, right? So finding a good mentor apprentice program would be an awesome way to get involved in real estate without having to do everything that entails.
yeah. Yeah, I think it also helps you set success stages, because if you go in and you meet with an investor and the investor's doing, I don't know, $10 million a year worth of deals or something, and you
Mhm.
see the amount of team coordination and just business ownership that goes into that, and everything that person, all the different hats that person has to wear, you might think, you know what, I don't actually want that big of an enterprise. What I really want is 5 deals a year, and I want to do, a mix of 3 wholesaling deals and 2 fix and flips, and that will give me everything I need to live as well as I want, right? And so I think it's a good way to success gate it, and try to figure out, do you want generational wealth, or do you want a really good present where you make enough money and live the way you want to live?
Yeah, and you can always cherry pick your rentals, right? Like either working on a company or doing these smaller deals and keep some rentals. And maybe as you grow and you mature in your real estate career, you get a little bit into the commercial aspect of it. So absolutely, any way that you get involved will open so many doors because real estate has a ton of opportunities, right?
Yeah,
I
so
think
let's
that's the
talk
beauty
about
of it.
that.
Yeah.
It's a great point because it's something I was Leon Barnes from the Collective Genius was on the other day. And we were discussing that. I mean, you know this. You're part of the Collective Genius. Like the topics that are coming out of there, like buying land, how to buy timber land, and getting into storage facilities, and like they're really the topics that real estate investors are interested in the last couple of years has almost exponentially increased. Right? It was in 2019. It was wholesaling and all wholesaling, maybe a wholesale, maybe you had a couple rental properties, but it was all in that pipeline. And I see a huge number of investors really kind of expanding their definition of what a real estate investment equals. So what are you seeing in that regard?
Well, I think it's an evolution too, right? Because wholesaling is simple, but it's not easy, right? It's a lot. It's a lot of marketing and sales
Simple, but
and
it's not easy. I'm going to soundbite that one. That was good.
oh yeah, it's simple. I mean, we all understand it. You can understand it really quickly. The challenge is a lot of brain damage, and some good operators are able to scale out of it. Some others keep it as small. They don't know if they want to say, like you said, a lifestyle business where I do 5 deals a quarter or a year, whatever that number is, and I'm happy. And that's a manageable business. But the more you grow, I call it the death zone, where if you really want to scale, you need to get to 15, 20 employees. So you can start stepping out, so you can go on a long vacation and everything happens without you being there. And a lot of people get trapped in there. So having clarity on that is important. And what I believe is the more people stay in that zone, they realize that the amount of work that requires to get that income, it would be not necessarily less effort, but you could make one deal in commercial that covers 50 deals of residential, right? And more people get attracted to that. It's a little bit harder. The barrier of entry is higher because it is more complex. It requires understanding better that you can make a mistake there, right? I mean, it's large numbers. So, and it gets more attractive too. Instead of buying one rental at a time, you can buy 1,000 units one time, but it requires more. I think there's always going to be room for everything. Some people are more inclined into the commercial space, uh,
Yeah.
but it's not simple. That one is not a simple, easy to go in. I believe the opportunity is a little bit bigger, maybe because the numbers are bigger and the economy is scale. But it is, I think everybody can find their niche. You will be pulled into it. I don't think there's a trend of people going that way. I just realize that people find really hard to wholesale and keep the engine going and say, "Hey, I'm still want to be involved in real estate. Let me explore this other opportunity because it's a little bigger, right?"
Right.
Uh,
Can you 5-year plan commercial? So, like, could you take every year, could you take a certain amount of cash flow and bucket it for future commercial investment? And then when you're ready, JV a deal or JV a couple of deals by having a bit of cash that you could offer so that you're, even as a seasoned investor, learning the commercial side of things without having to kind of, again, like lone wolf, go all in on it?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, that's the beauty of real estate in my eyes, right? It's you can do anything and everything. Like if you find that you and you don't do anything else, you can still get a small equity from it, right? Like
Right.
even if you don't fund it, you don't fund, like you don't do anything. You just found a deal and maybe just had some sort of pre-agreement with the seller that they're gonna buy it, and then somebody else does the underwriting. So that's the beauty of it. You can structure, you can find your way in any of the aspects of real estate and make money. So absolutely, I believe what you said is possible.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that we're trying to help facilitate at Launch Control. We have a deal in place with New Western, so that wholesalers, any deals that they have in their pipeline, if the seller, it's not quite meeting the margins, but there's definitely a deal to be had. They can work through that exclusive New Western pipeline and get an offer on, or get that deal turned over, dispoed in like 24 hours, right? So it's any time that you get a homeowner or a small business owner, or the owner of a large commercial space, and there's a non-listed opportunity there. It's just a question of numbers. There, like you said, there's equity to be found, right? It's just having the resources to be able to take the right chunk of it for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I remember our first few deals when we did our first real estate deals. We had no idea what a buyer's list was, but we were connected to some of the co-wholesalers. I don't believe New Western fits in that category because I believe they're a little bit more than just that. But they
Yeah.
have a model like that where they can take somebody else's deal and sell it. Right? We had that. Obviously, we
Yeah.
lost a little bit of equity in the deal, but hey, it's better to do something than do nothing with it, right? So like you said, if you find a seller who wants to sell something at a slight discount, even if you cannot pair it or make the deal work all the way through, there are people out there that can help you in any type of deal.
Yeah, and even with wholesaling, right? Like the if you're working with local real estate agents, and you can kind of work out a deal with them where you're going to get a bit of a commission if you're passing off properties to them, or vice versa, if they're bringing you expired listing kind of properties, and you're able to come up with a solution. Maybe it's not going to be, you might have to pay out a bit to them because they brought you the deal, but that was still an available deal from the distressed property market that was not going to be sold the traditional route. So somebody, or somebodies plural, are going to profit from that, right? So if you're able to find, again, in a supportive way, in a way that helps a homeowner, not in like a parasitic way, but if you're able in a functional way for the homeowner to take a slice of that profit, do it, right? Like, absolutely, find a way to do that, because those I think it's kind of like if you, I don't know, like when you're trying to save money and you decide to cut out Starbucks and you realize that you were spending $120 every month at Starbucks, and over the course of the year you saved, 1,500 bucks by not going to Starbucks, right? 'Cause those little incremental things add up over the course of the year. You do, real estate, you deal with a realtor here, deal with a realtor there. You take some of these deals that go through the launch New Western pipeline, and maybe you didn't make full profit on it, but you did pretty well. You add up all of those over the course of the year, and they're like, oh, this was a couple $100,000 difference, if not more, for my business for the year. I, it felt small at the time, but it added up big at the end of the year.
Yeah. And for me, it comes back always to how can I create value, right? I have two kids. They're 8 and 10, two boys, and I always tell them like, you want to make money, create value. It's not about making money; it's about creating value. If you create enough value, somebody's going to pay for it, right? It can be the realtor, it can be the homeowner, it can be the commercial real estate investor, whoever it is. If you can add value to them, you're gonna get paid.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So one of the things that you mentioned about the market maturing, is that there's more of a lens on the distressed property market than there ever has been in the past. So in the past, if you wanted to, buy land or get a wholesale deal, or even kind of off market purchase, a small business, somebody's retiring, whatever, you had the ability to, wholesale those kinds of deals, or really in a hidden space, right? You had the owner, you had the end buyer, and you had the facilitator. And the facilitator was kind of sight unseen, for always traditionally has been, right? But there's more of an awareness now that there are transactions that have multiple participants. So, in terms of bringing value, in terms of there being more of a lens, how do you see that changing, to sort of industry best practices?
I mean, from the value creation and what's going to change the maturity is, I believe some states are already requiring you to have a license, right? So it's creating value through that. With the restrictions that you have, is understanding that listing is not the solution for every homeowner, right? And that's what I think it has been a little bit of the challenge a lot of the times, is the realtor association believes listing is the only solution, but not every time. So a lot of the times you cannot list a property until you solve some problems. I mean, you can list it and solve it, but somebody has to solve problems, right? A homeowner passed away, wife got the house, she has no idea how to do anything about it, she's overwhelmed, right? That's the value you can create. No matter what happens, it's helping that homeowner solving that problem, and then list, find a cash buyer, whatever it is in the back end, how you sell that property. But it's always, if you focus on creating value for the person who holds the asset, you're going to be able to find the solution there. That's my take on that. I think no matter what happens, there's always going to be an opportunity to create value by rehabbing the property, by renovating it, by putting a better tenant in place. Something, there's always something that you can do to add value.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. Like, you can shine the brightest light possible onto the industry, onto wholesaling, expose the entire process so that every homeowner in the world is 100% aware of how it works. And that's not going to change economic conditions that put people into a position where they were hit the distressed property market, or just life equivalents, right? Like,
Life
I live
event. Yeah.
I live outside of the country. If I inherited a house in North Dakota right now, uh, even if I could, I could afford to fix it up. I could afford to list it. Would I want to deal with all of that, right? If someone just came to me and there was an offer that felt valid, and I could just walk away with that number, would I take it? Probably, right? Like, I probably would skip the 6 months of spending money up front and blah blah blah, because I'd have to run the numbers
and
and
time dealing
time,
with
right?
contractors and yeah.
Yeah. Do I want to deal with all that for an increase in profit that's maybe not worth the squeeze, right? So it's sometimes it's not economic, sometimes it's life related, and that's not going to change. People are not going to stop being in life situations where a property hits the distressed property market. They're not going to stop being in economic situations where a property hits the distressed market. So that inventory isn't going anywhere, as you said, right? So it's all we're doing really is making minor adjustments to how we process that inventory.
Yeah.
So in terms of you guys, I know you guys are obviously one of the leaders in the data space, if not the leader in the data space. Everything that you do, I talked to Felipe about this. One of the things I really love about what you guys do is that are you're running tests. You know, based on data, how well your data performs, right? You're not just aggregating and selling. You guys are really deep into doing iterative testing with your data, and kind of putting proof behind what you do, which I love. So I want to give you a second just for anybody that missed the Felipe episode to kind of talk a little bit about 80/20. And then for anybody that's watching, you've got 80/20 recruit here on the bottom of the screen. So maybe touch on that a little bit as well.
Sure, sure. I mean, if you missed the episode with Felipe, you should definitely check it out. He's better looking and he speaks way better than me as far as sales and marketing. I'm going to do a quick overview of 80/20. We are obsessed with predicting who is the seller more likely to sell to an investor, right? That's what we do. And you said something that really resonated is the iterations of it. We call it the feedback loop. We work with our clients. Our services is not, hey, pay and we give you a list. We work together to understand who's more likely to sell to you based on your criteria and to your competition too, so you can have explore the options that you have. One of the things that we do that I don't believe anybody else does is reverse engineer the views that our clients have done in the past and show them a report. Hey, this is what you've done. This is how you look. Let's look at the market. Let's look at your competitors. This is what they've done. And have a side by side map. Just an example of that is a zip code map where you see a colors where you've done the most deals and you see where your competition has done the most deals. Just that map alone gives you a full visibility. Why did I let that zip code out? Right? Maybe because I thought the properties there were higher end. Maybe because it's too far from my office. You can make a decision based on that. But if you see that you've done 0 deals in a zip code, but you see your competition is doing a ton of activities, maybe it's something that you made an assumption in the past that you didn't know, right? So we're obsessed with visualizing and presenting data and allowing our engineers to predict who are more likely to sell a discount based on a feedback loop of information. And every month we meet with our clients to say how things are going. How's your texting campaign or launch going? Show me what leads did you create? How many contracts you got from launch? Let's analyze those so we can try to bring more like those. And it's a feedback loop, right? Or your wrong numbers, let's remove those. And it's a constant work and improvement of your campaigns, not just one said and done and forget it, because the data is always evolving. Every single day, a data point changes, right? We deliver the data to our clients on a monthly basis, but they can access our platform and see the updates on a daily basis on the data that they have. So every month we remove the recently sold. We ask them what are the leads, the contracts that you're getting. So we're always training our model to predict what's producing today based on their needs. And with that, we've been very blessed and fortunate to be open to new opportunities. Like with 80/20 REI, we solve the data and we help our clients with the marketing. But at the same time, we saw a need for direct mail services and manage, like you guys, right? You started Launch Control started a taxing platform, and you saw a need for the managed services, so
Right.
people could hey, you know what? I just want to have leads coming into my CRM. We saw the same opportunity for direct mail. A lot of our clients, they take our data and we gave them a good feedback and say, hey, this is how you should do direct mail. But they say, hey, I don't want to do it. Can you do it for me? So we partnered with another group from San Diego, and we are running now one of the largest direct mail agencies where you get our data, we do the direct mail, we iterate on how much to offer on the check letter or what pieces should send, what is the frequency, and all of that. So you only get leads in your CRM. And we meet on the data side once a month and on the results on the direct mail once a month. And again, we are 100% remote. I know Launch Control is also remote. I believe you guys have your team everywhere and a lot of Eastern Europe. Mine, because I am from Latin America, for us made more sense go down instead of
Sure.
Europe. So, and one of the advantages of that is having people on the same time zone, right?
Yeah.
Latin America has that advantage that you have the exact East and Pacific time zone. So if you want somebody to work, if in San Diego you want somebody to work Pacific Standard Time, you're gonna find somebody that works in their light time at the exact same time as you are. And we found that to be a super advantage. So we would get a lot of emails from our existing clients and people that we knew from the masterminds. Can you help me hire somebody in Latin America? And I would help here and there, give them a few resources until we said, hey, you know what? I went back to a friend of mine from college. He has a lot of experience in digital marketing and recruiting. I say, hey man, I'm seeing these needs from our customers. Let's open up an 80/20 recruit, right?
Yeah.
Let's help people find talent in Latin America. And we specialize in data entry type of profiles, cold callers, lead managers, but we also can go as high as an operations manager. We've had placed COOs from Latin America, right? There is very talented people, as you guys know as well. Launch, you guys do similar. You have people from all over the world. You can find really good talent anywhere. Uh, and the last one that we have is the 80/20 CRM, which is a more advanced CRM based on Salesforce. It's the Ferrari of the CRMs. It has all the native tools. It connects with everything. We're actually looking forward to having an integration with Launch, so you can send the text messages from there,
Yeah.
from follow-ups and even prospecting purposes. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, we started as a real estate investor, realizing we were really good at the data and the lead gen side. So our business coach at the time, Gary, Harper, and Susan, pushed us to start 80/20 REI. And from there, we've been seeing these needs. People keep asking us to do a little bit more, or asking advice on things that we do really well. And we've been very fortunate to have amazing partners that can run this unit, because Felipe and I, we run 80/20 REI, and that's our core focus. However, we have amazing partners that are running the other things, and we're very proud to be able to help and create value for the real estate community, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned that I think are important.
Sure.
Sort of a repeat theme that we've have here on Deal Nation is to outsource early if you can, right? Like, of course,
Oh,
financially, you need to be able to do it safely. Like, don't rush into it. But when you have that breathing room, outsource, right? Because you can't be a subject matter expert in absolutely everything, which is something that you mentioned about the data testing and analysis is so important, both on the macro level and the micro level. That, we'll send at Launch Control, we'll send people, because we're in every market in the country, right? So we'll send national reports of like which markets are hitting nationally. But within that, in those national level reports, what's really working within your market and within your buy box, that macro level analysis really comes down to what you are doing in terms of your outreach and the responses that you have coming in. So uh, using 80/20 recruit or launch leads, which is our done for you service on that side, that allows you to outsource that side of data management too, so that we can start to look at the structure of what messages, if you're using launch, like what messages are resonating with what data sets from 80/20, right? So if 80 we've got an 80/20 list that's really really strong leads, a lot of pre-foreclosure liens, people that have a ticking clock going, and we find that there's a certain type of messaging that resonates well, and the data is coming in well. Obviously, we're going to put our focus more on that type of messaging because we know that it resonates with that audience, right? So when you can start to not just do it by see, sense, feel, but actually have the data to back it up, and keep that data. That I think is the really important thing, is to keep that data, because when you're scaling up a team, whether you've outsourced or you're building internally, you want to be able to have those processes be adaptable by other people, right? So like if you want to hire somebody new for your staff, you want them to be able to learn the processes and carry on with those processes really easily without you having to start over and start over and start over. And if it only exists in your head, what works and what doesn't work, because you just know from talking to homeowners, then you're going to be in a constant education process and a constant retraining process. Whereas that sort of data, um, uh, keeping data, testing data, keeping it, and having that data mapped out, and or in launch data plus messaging mapped out, is, I mean, you could package that and sell it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you touch a couple of things that I think it's super important. Like you said, there's a book. I worked with Dan Martell as a business coach. I was a part of his mastermind and worked with him briefly, but he has a book called Buy Back Your Time, where he talks about the principle of what's your buyback rate. And that's why we created 80/20 Recruit. Most of our services from 80/20 REI, DM Force, and 80/20 CRM, I tailor to the more advanced investor, right? But 80/20 Recruit is not. You can be a single operator doing a few deals a year, and you just want to add an admin under you. So what's important to understand is what's your buyback time rate. So he talks about the principle of dividing your annual income by 2,000, because there's roughly 2,000 hours a year, right? So let's say you make $100,000 a year. Your hourly rate, you divided that by 2,000. Don't hold me accountable to this number. I'm doing math off my top here, but it's $50. And he talks about your buyback rate is a fifth of that. So if you're making $50 an hour, you should be able to afford and not do any task that is under $10 an hour, right? And
Yeah,
in this world that we're talking, is could be cold calling. You should not be cold calling. You should not be managing your initial outreach. So either you can go to launch leads, or you can hire a cold call, a texter to manage your initial outreach, and it will be probably below the $10 an hour ratio, right? And then you start scaling as you grow. You can start always calculating your buyback rate. How much can I pay for somebody to offload so I can focus on doing higher price tasks, right? And it's a
yeah,
super simple principle, but if you follow that through, and then as you're scaling your team, that also applies. I challenge my team. I tell them, your hourly rate is X. Who can we hire to offload from you, not just for the business owner, for your leadership team too? Who can you hire to offload some of the tasks so you can focus on producing better and bigger outcomes for the company, and you continue growing and developing as a leader as well? So I think that there's an opportunity. And the other point that I think you nailed it is, don't make assumptions. Let the data guide you, right?
yeah,
I can think of a text message that's super creative, that if I send to the pre-foreclosure, the probate is gonna crush, and then you send it and crickets, right?
yeah,
And then you send it a completely different that you didn't think it will work, and it works. At the end of the day, it's all about testing, measuring, and improving. That's what we call the feedback loop, right? You make an assumption, you test it, you measure, you make some tweaks, and test it again. And not everybody has the ability and the bandwidth to do it. That's why outsourcing some of these services like launch leads or having us manage your direct mail are great solutions if that's not your area of expertise.
yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Dan Martell book. That's come up on a couple episodes as well. And one of the things that I think is important, look, if you want to, a lot of people will go, and if they want to scale up, the first thing that they think is, well, I'm just going to get a VA, and they're going to find a VA that's quite cheap, and that feels like the best budget choice. It feels like the best financial choice because they'll look at launch leads and they'll, which is not expensive, but is more expensive than one VA working directly for your team, right? Same thing with 80/20 recruit, right? So the they'll look at it and think, well, financially, it's just cheaper, makes more sense for me to hire a VA. It's fine, you can do that, but in that, like, don't do any tasks that are under $10 an hour. Um, way of looking at things. Other things that people need to consider that often don't get considered is, okay, if I hire someone directly, I'm going to have to train them on how
Oh,
direct mail works. I'm going to have to train them on how text marketing works. I'm going to have to show them how to use the application, just using launch control as an example, how to match data with what content that we have currently in the system for the messaging. When responses come in, I'm going to have to script out how to respond to those responses. I'm going to have to teach them very clearly when to draw the line and not continue the conversation, but to pivot that to a phone call so that I can pick it up and I can do that. And you could take months really training someone to get that, and then they take another job where they get paid a couple bucks more an hour, and now you're in the recruiting process where you need to find someone new, so you're out a few weeks while you're doing the recruiting process, and then you're retraining for 2 more months, and you can be in an endless loop of just recruit train recruit train, whereas you can outsource to a service where if somebody leaves, another person who's already fully trained is put into place, and the whole thing carries on seamlessly. So you have no drop in your pipeline because it's 100% outsourced, including those less than $10 tasks of here's how the software works, and here.
you nailed it, because I mean, the time and money is a matrix, right? You either have one or the other. It's a trade-off, and everything that you do, there's a trade-off. When you outsource, you might pay a little premium for outsourcing the service, but like you said, you don't deal with any of the other things that requires there. The other side of that is, if you invest the time in building those process, make sure that you build the process, right? Train, but build the process. So if that person leaves, whoever comes in already have a foundation to work on. You
Yeah.
own and you have a little bit more control, but it requires more time, right? So it's a choice. Do I want to learn all the ins and outs of texting so I can be the best at it, or should I hire an expert to do it for me? Both are valid, is what your preferences are. And what I see the most successful investors do is they say, I'm good at sales. Most of real estate investors are really good at sales, so they never outsource that, and they try to outsource everything else. Hence the data, the launch leads. They don't want to figure out what message to send to what list. They want the experts to do it because they want to really focus their business and by solving the problem from the homeowners. That's the core business. They solve problems from homeowners. They don't solve problems. Who is the seller that I should text, or what should I text? That's what I do at 80/20 AI with the data, and that's what you guys do at Launch Control and Launch Leads, right?
Yeah.
That's all we do. I only look at who is the seller more likely to start a discount. We do all, like, we have a team of almost 30 people just looking at all the data points and try to figure out who is more likely to start a discount. The same with you guys. You have a whole team try to figure out how to best text. So yes, you could hire a cold caller, you could hire a texter and try to train and figure it out yourself if you're a little short on budget and you have more time. But at some point, you have to understand there's a trade-off of doing either or the both. But I think you nailed it.
And you mentioned being able to just really focus on sales, right? And sales, what is associated with sales is sales processes and lead management, right? Which people that are great at sales don't typically want to build the systems, the pipelines that leads go through. That is another thing that is you can really depend on other experts for. So, for instance, launch control is going to provide a certain level, especially through the drip sequences, of automation to your business so that you don't have to do that. And then if you're working with with an 80/20 CRM, and you're going to have, additional automations, additional ways to have the touch points preset so that you don't have to have this mental map of every touch point associated with every seller or every buyer or every real estate agent that you're interacting with, right? It's impossible to scale and to keep all of those touch points internalized, right? You have to have processes for it. And if you don't like building that particular mousetrap, let someone else build that mousetrap, because there's a science to it. And if it's not your thing, get somebody who it is their thing to at least come in temporarily, build it all out so that you can just let the machine roll.
Yeah, like I always say this: there's three ways to learn. Uh, at the lowest level, you can learn. Lowest level of investment in the short term is you learning from your own experiences, right? Uh, hey, those lessons you will never forget, but it will take time and it's going to be painful, right? The second level is you can read books, you can listen to interviews like this, where you do not interact with the author of the content. And you're going to shortcut some of that because you're going to be able to connect some of their experiences to your experiences. And then you can make better decisions as you go through. And the other one is paying a premium for a mentor, for somebody that can, in this case, do it for you. Because as a service provider, we work a little bit as a mentor too, where we're figuring out for them what's working, what's not working, versus me banging my head. Yes, you're not
Yeah.
going to necessarily learn that lesson from a vendor, but you will be able to focus on your core genius, right? And again, I believe real estate investors, their core genius is solving problems for homeowners. That's if it's that's not your core genius, your core focus as a real estate investors, maybe this is not your niche, because you should
Right.
be passionate about solving the problem of the homeowner.
Absolutely. I agree. All right. So let's do a rapid fire advice from Jesus session real
Ooh,
quick. All
I
right,
love it.
so we'll break it up into the subscription levels for launch, because it kind of breaks up the scaling stages for real estate investors. All right, so a launch control light package subscriber comes to you. They're just getting involved in real estate investment, feeling a little nervous about how to make this work long term. What are your top three pieces of advice?
Find what they're really good at. Whether guy do a energy audit. Again, the buy back your time book is phenomenal. They cover a lot of these topics, but find a energy audit. What are the things that you like to do that gives you energy, and the things that you don't like to do, and try to hire for the things that you don't like to do as soon as possible, right? It could be transaction coordinating things. You can outsource it. You have easy REI closings, or you can hire somebody on your team, but make a choice and be aware of the things that you really enjoy, you're good at, you have energy, and the things you're not, and outsource or hire for those.
Energy audit. I love that. I'm gonna write that one down.
Oh,
Okay.
it's a, the best way I think about things is like, does this give me energy or takes energy from me? If it takes energy from me, I shouldn't be doing. We want to aim to be, again, 80/20. We love the 80/20 principle, the Pareto. 20% of your efforts will produce 80% of your results.
Yeah.
So you want to aim to be at your 80% on things that gives you energy. If not, you're gonna feel miserable. You're losing energy every day. You're gonna finish your days tired. You're not gonna have energy for your family, for your wife, and you want to make sure that you save energy for that. And focusing on the energy, it's the best way that I found.
Absolutely. Okay. So second group, someone who is a launch control core package subscriber. They're scaling up their business, but probably at the level where they're just considering whether to bring on a VA or outsource certain services. So advice for them.
Definitely consider those two, right? If you are in the mid tier and you're still doing a lot of that homework, a lot of the hard work, make sure that you look at launch services for launch leads, or look at hiring somebody, um, and start looking at hiring people that have a history of winning, right? One of the biggest mistakes that I've done in my personal entrepreneurial life has been A lot of times I hire for potential and not for we call a wall of medals. Now I want to hire people that have won in the past, that done it successfully, either a service, a mentor, or an employee, right? Make sure that they won in the past. Launch Leads has won for multiple clients. Look at their client list, right? And you'll see these guys are real. Don't go for anything that is not somebody who's done it and it's proven to do it. And be selective on that. I would say really focus on, again, understanding that your core, if you are passionate about real estate investing, your core business is solving problems for homeowners, not figuring out the text messages and anything else around that.
Yeah,
That would be my advice. Reminding that you run a sales organization that's focused on solving problems for homeowners.
absolutely. Okay, last group. Someone comes to you, they are a Launch Control Pro or Enterprise subscriber. Their challenge is not getting more deals. Their challenge is how to make their whole business enterprise run without them having to be at the center of everything.
Yeah, I would say for the second and the for sure the third group, we can help on the data. We like to think our services, except 80/20 Recruit, where we can help people from any level, right? On 80/20 REI, DM Force, and 80/20 CRM, we can help be the gasoline that you pour in your fire, right? You have to have a team already. You already know what you're doing. And I would say for that crowd, focus on really building the foundation, documenting things so you can start building the tools so you can step out of the business, right? Or do only the things that you really love. And I would love to connect with them. I know we can help them with the data, having the best data. I know we
Yeah.
can help them with the CRM, and definitely consider Launch Leads for your automatic lead gen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. I definitely agree on that front, obviously. All right. So that was excellent advice for anybody who is either currently or coming in as a light core or pro subscriber. I think everyone listening in or watching this can see why I've leaned on Jesus throughout the years to just get advice and
Thank you.
learn about industry trends and where everything's headed. So, Jesus, any last parting words for the audience before I let you go? Obviously, I'm going to bring you back on regularly to check in, but just for the moment, any last parting thoughts?
No, man, I just want to thank you for the opportunity here, sharing with your audience. I know you guys are extremely successful. You help a lot of the real estate people grow their business, start the business. You guys have a solution that solves for everybody. So just thankful for the relationship that we had over the years. And again, sharing some time with you is always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it.